Chapter 14. A Threat. During the ride to the address where they hoped to find Madame, Minnie kept up a chatter which exhausted both Nancy and Ned. But when they drove up in front of an old dark house, Minnie became silent. "It looks as if it's deserted," Ned observed. "You two wait in the car while I find out." He had been gone over 10 minutes when he returned and shook his head. "No one there?" Nancy asked. "Only a caretaker. I saw a light in the basement. He has a room there. The owners have gone away for the summer." "Madame hasn't gone away!" exclaimed Minnie. "I know better than that." "Madame is not the owner of the house," Ned corrected. "No such person has ever been here. Madame gave you a false address." At first, Minnie refused to believe the truth. When it finally dawned upon her that she had been tricked, the girl burst into tears. She had no place to go, she declared. Her last dollar had been spent for clothes. "We could drive you home," Nancy suggested. "And have my family laugh at me?" Because she had no choice, Minnie finally consented to being driven to her parents' farm. But as they neared the place, she became more and more fearful of the reception she would receive. As the car stopped, the door of the farmhouse flew open, and Minnie's parents rushed out to see who was in it. When they saw their daughter, they cried out happily, and as she stepped from the car, Mrs. Glasser took Minnie into her arms. "Oh, my dear, don't ever go away again," she sobbed. Tears flowed freely down Minnie's cheeks, and suddenly she remembered Ned and Nancy. These people brought me home," she said. "You can thank them." Mr. Glasser put out a gnarled hand, and his wife wiped her tears and said, "Please excuse me. I've been so upset these past few days I forgot my manners. Thank you kindly for bringing Minnie back." She did not recognize Nancy, who was glad of this. Nancy and Ned left the Glasser family ecstatic in their reunion. As the couple rode toward Candleton, Nancy became very quiet. "Worried about something?" Ned asked. "Just disappointed. I had high hopes for solving part of the mystery tonight, but instead, you aided a poor girl who needed help badly, and I admire you for it, Nancy." After Ned dropped her off at Mrs. Chantrey's, Nancy continued to think about the strange puzzle. The next morning, however, Nancy was her usual cheerful self. With Bess and George, she went to the Sal Sandy shop early and helped Mrs. Chantrey arrange garden flowers on the tables and prepare fruit before any of the regular employees arrived. When 3 of them called in sick, the girls volunteered to stay and help out. Soon patrons began coming in for breakfast. The first customer to seat himself at one of Nancy's tables was a dwarf-like man she had seen in the tea room before. He gave his order in a gruff voice, then became absorbed in the morning paper. As Nancy went back and forth from the kitchen, she kept stealing glances at the man. Where else had she seen him? To satisfy herself, she asked Mrs. Chantrey about him. "I don't know his name," the tea room owner replied. "He's a rather unfriendly customer. Never says so much as hello, although he comes here regularly. Evidently his wife is an invalid, for he always takes food for her when he leaves." That night, after the shop closed, Mrs. Chantrey invited Nancy, Bess, and George to a concert. The cousins accepted, but Nancy begged off, saying she would rather stay at home because her father might telephone or even return. June was out and it was very quiet at the house. Nancy picked up a book, but instead of reading it, she sat lost in thought. Who was that man at the tea room? She asked herself over and over again. Presently, a car pulled up outside the house. Thinking her father might have arrived by taxi, Nancy ran to the porch. But she was wrong. A stocky man with a dark mustache and beard alighted, pulling his felt hat low over his eyes. Seeing the girl, he stopped abruptly in the shadows and asked gruffly,
Are you Nancy Drew?"
"I am."
"Then you're to come with me."
"For what reason, please?" The man's manner had made Nancy suspicious.
"Your father needs you. He's in trouble."
"I think you're lying, and I won't go with you."
"Oh, you won't, eh?"
the fellow growled, losing his temper.
"Well, listen to me. You and that snooping father of yours. Mind your own business, or it'll be the worse for you both. Understand?"
The stranger advanced toward Nancy. Frightened, she ran into the house, slamming and locking the door. Turning off the lights, she stood behind the living room draperies and watched the man from the window. He started toward the door, but changed his mind. He hurried to his parked car and drove away. Nancy picked up a flashlight and ran outside to look around. Tire tracks were plainly visible on the sandy road. As she examined the pattern, her roving light revealed a small bundle lying close by. "Here's something of his," she thought, picking it up. "This must have fallen from the car." Inside the house, Nancy examined the package under a bright kitchen light. A crude sketch of 3 bells in a cluster had been penciled on the plain brown wrapping paper. Puzzled, she unwrapped the bundle. Hundreds of labels bearing the Moncur trademark fluttered to the table and floor. So that man was one of the Moncur crowd, Nancy thought excitedly. She stared at the sketch on the paper. I wonder if they're going to change their design from hearts to bells. The idea so intrigued Nancy, she decided to phone her father. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Startled, Nancy tiptoed to the hall and peered through the window. She could see no one and called out to ask who was there. It was Ned. She let him in and briefed him on the strange man's visit and the package he had dropped. "We must trail that man if we can," she added. "But someone may be watching the house, so I'll slip out the back way and meet you over on the next street." She hastily wrote a note to her friends telling them where she was going, then let herself out the rear door. By the time she reached the appointed spot, Ned was waiting in his car. "This may be a futile chase," Nancy said breathlessly, "but I saw the man's car turn down the street after it left Mrs. Chantrey's." "Notice the make?" "No, it was too dark to see the car plainly." "Then how can we trace it?" Playing the beam of her flashlight along the roadway close to the curb, Nancy did not answer. "What are you looking for?" Ned asked, puzzled, and got out of the car. Nancy pointed to tire tracks plainly visible in the sandy road. She explained that they were the same pattern as those she had found in front of the Chantrey house after the man's car had pulled away. "I noticed that the driver hugged the curb," she added, "so we may be able to trace him." "It's worth trying," Ned agreed. "Let's go." Nancy expected the trail might lead to a highway. To her surprise, the driver had selected a back street in the Candleton business district. This made it easy to follow him, for no other automobile had traveled on the same side of the street recently. The tire tracks led to a small print shop in an alley. There, the auto had turned in, apparently parked near a side entrance, then gone on. Inside the building, a light burned brightly. A man in a printer's apron could be seen working over one of the presses. "It's 10:30. That fellow must have a rush order to keep open so late," Ned observed. Nancy suggested they talk to the printer and find out if he knew the suspect. The thud of a hand press deadened the sound of their footsteps as Nancy and Ned entered the cluttered little shop. Not until they shouted did the stooped figure whirl around to face them. "Doggone it all," he protested. "I wish folks wouldn't sneak up on me. Always think I'm about to be robbed. Anything I can do for you?" "We may want some stationery printed," Nancy said, as an excuse for the interruption. "Would it be possible for you to do it soon?" "Miss, I couldn't even touch it for 6 weeks. Why, I'm wallowing up to my ears now in commercial orders. That's why I'm putting in extra time tonight, trying to get caught up." "Do you do much label printing?" Nancy asked casually. "Makes up about 50% of my business. Been doing a lot of work for the Moncur people lately." Nancy was careful not to show her elation at the information. "Oh yes, I understand they're putting out another line too. What's their new trademark? Is it 3 bells or—" She purposely hesitated, and the old man completed the sentence for her. "You mean sweet chimes. Are you going to do the work for the firm?" "No, I'm too rushed. Anyhow, that fast-talking foreigner, Monsieur Papier, said he'd rather give the job to another printer who is closer to where the products are going to be made. Said it wouldn't pay him to have any more work done here." "Where is the place?" Nancy asked, trying to conceal her excitement. "Let me see. Yorktown. Or maybe it was Yorkville. I remember it had a York in it." "Did Monsieur Papier call on you tonight?" "Yes, just before you came. This morning he picked up a package. He started talking about that sweet chimes idea, and he drew a sketch of the design on the wrapping paper. Tonight he came back saying he couldn't find his package. He thought maybe he'd forgotten to take it, but I guess he lost it." "I think I've seen Monsieur Papier," Nancy said. "Does he have a mustache and beard?" "No," the printer replied. "Must be somebody else you have in mind." "Probably," said Nancy. "I'm sorry we kept you so long from your work. Good night." Nancy was excited as she and Ned returned to his car. "It must have been Harry Tyrox, alias Monsieur Papier, who called on me," she remarked. "He put on a mustache and beard for disguise, and he didn't have a trace of a foreign accent." End of chapter 14.